If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacist and the white media hate that. And now, the Sunday address.
Flashback. We have identified at least 5 existing campaigns that are focused on getting Black people to do only one thing, not vote for the Democrats.
And can you name one of those 5 campaigns? I mean, we put up from the report that you're saying that there's a conversation about reparations that has to do with it. There's a criminal justice conversation. Yes. There's an immigration. Go on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Reparations,
immigration, reparations, immigration, and anything that has to do with the criminal justice system. If you see anyone who says basically tangibles or you're not getting our vote without us getting something back, you should start to pause and take a better look at what they're saying, better look at those accounts and seeing what they're saying.
End of Flashback. Much later.
On this Black History Month, we're highlighting foundational Black Americans whose ingenuity, innovations, and labor play a critical role in American culture and infrastructure, including Alexander Miles, who invented automatic elevator doors in 1887, and Garrett Morgan, who invented the 3-light traffic signal in 1923.
First of all, no, this segment was not and is not validation of anything. Because as the Black Grassroots, we don't look or want validation from the propaganda mouthpiece for white supremacy. What this is confirmation. It confirms that the enemy has been trying to ignore us out of existence, see if we would go away. We didn't. FBA has not arrived, but the enemy knows exactly who we are, and they know how widespread this has become. The white media's job is to control us. This is confirmation that they realize they failed. All the years of the white media has been trying to dictate to us who our leaders are, always bringing out their own hand-picked, cherry-picked tools, individuals who they claim these are the new Black leaders. All of their attempts to try to push counterfeit, phony Black empowerment types, trying to pretend like they were using our verbiage. But as we show, with lineage, it's a hell of a lot deeper than just the words. You see, the white media, they didn't bring the name or the lineage to us. They attacked it by name. The white media had Joke Reed attack FBA specifically, but that was a pathetic trial balloon that sank like a lead balloon. See, family, what they did with Joy Reid attacking FBA was the usual putting a shill or tether out there to break the ice on attacking us, like they did when they had Obama be the first one to attack woke during the anti-police violence protest, which of course opened the door for white Democrats and leftists like James Carville and others to say, stop with all this woke talk, all this talk about defunding the police, all this stuff, everybody loves the police, they love the police, which in turn then paved the way for the white right to put their so-called think tanks into attacking it. As you see, one hand washes the other. It was the same thing as when the white right attacked critical race theory, which we all know was a response to the publicity garnered by the 1619 Project, which they knew was part of the larger, bigger conversation on reparations that the Black Grassroots had already been pushing. Democrats didn't want that to happen either, which was why when they had their phony baloney so-called reparations congressional hearing, they made sure to bring in bought and paid for bootlicks, all of them, delivering the exact same message. Reparations should not be money. Even Ta-Nehisi Coates remained strategically silent on that point. The biggest stage this guy ever had to talk about the subject that the white media claimed that he was the standard bearer for. And all he managed to do was to list a few historical atrocities, and he let those shills and bootlicks either say that reparations should be a housing voucher or that it shouldn't happen at all. So much for your reparations champion as told to you by the white media, huh? Well, Joke Reed and Barack Obama are both gone. But the lineage is still here, and long after these fakers, phonies, frauds, and fools have crumbled to dust and been forgotten by history, the lineage will still be here. See, if this was a dunce, some sock puppet hashtag put out by weirdos and losers, that would be a fart in a dust storm. The Black Grassroots, however, is the storm, and like all storms, we may seem to move slowly, but we are inevitable, and like all the most powerful storms, we are Black. Standing on lineage threatens the system because what we're doing is we are recontextualizing ourselves. And that's something white supremacy can't stand because what it means is we're taking over the social conversation about ourselves. And that's the reason why ABC News immediately took that piece down as soon as they found out that it was trending. They removed the original article from their website. They made sure to remove it from aggregators like Yahoo. They also made sure to remove it from YouTube. They wanted this thing erased. Problem for them, though, is it had already been reposted hundreds, if not thousands of times. It's already out there. Sure, they can remove it from YouTube, but everybody's got a copy of it now. Now, why did they think that they had to do that? It was because the calls were coming in hard and heavy from the same trash who had Joke Reed attacking the lineage. All of the people who benefit from there being this artificial flat definition of black, where everybody gets to swing off of our coattails while exploiting our history and running us into the ground. From the DNC leadership to the tethers and bootlicks, they all went on full alert when they saw that. And that's how this is the knife to twist. All these desperate tethers, bootlicks, and shills, that they were sending Disney and ABC all kinds of terrified messages, emails, and phone calls. And I'll bet you that even a number of the so-called Pan-Africanists were right in there with them too, saying, "Massa, you got to take this videos down. Got to remove this articles. You can't be saying nothing about no foundational black Americans. Why, it's gonna make black folks more disobedient, massa." But too late. The damage has already been done. We've been out here spreading the word for years now. White power didn't create foundational black American as a term. They didn't spread the use of the term, and hiding their heads in the sand won't make it go away. There's an old saying about that. Reality is that which refuses to go away when you close your eyes. We are the reality. That's why they attempted to pretend like they didn't know about us, to try to wish us away, to try to conjure magic by ignoring us, and hoping that in time the black grassroots would move on to something else. They would forget all about that delineation stuff. After all, black people have a bad track record of doing that. We have been consistently inconsistent. Until now. Ignoring us didn't make the issue go away. And year after year, we've grown stronger, and the calls to prioritize the lineage and the change that it represents has grown louder. You see, what the people at ABC and the rest of the white media will never understand is we, the black grassroots, don't need the white media to push our message. We just need black people to get on code and stay on code. They showed that what we've been doing is so strong they know about it, just like Tucker Carlson had to admit it too. Of course, as soon as these guys heard that it was trending, they immediately said, take it down, you gotta get rid of this, take it down. Yeah, but it's too late, suckers, we already know. 20 years ago, I told you what the mission of the black media is, to take control of the social discourse within our community, and without a single TV station or white big money donor or big money donors at all, we have done it. When it comes to black in America, we drive the discourse, not the white media, not their bootlicks and shills. And they know it. So when they slipped up with this one, they had to run. They had to hide. They were like, well, we probably can't erase it completely, but we don't have to help spread this. When the white media gets on code and agrees as a group not to mention certain things, to pretend that certain things don't exist, that is censorship. And what it's meant to do is to make people think that something doesn't exist even though it does. This is how the white media carries out mind control. As Dr. John Henrik Clarke said, the white media is out to control image. Because if they can control what you see, they can control how you see yourself. And if they can control how you see yourself, they can control what you do about yourself. Somebody comes up to you and tells you that basically you got to be lumped in with all of these tethers and fools and fakers and phonies and frauds and all of these intersectional idiots. They sit there and tell you that this is who you are. They present to you a phony image of who you are. And if you're not careful, you'll believe it, internalize it, and even try to live your life by it. You'll wind up spending decades trying to spread the message of black empowerment to a diaspora that didn't want it. You'll have people telling you that Barack Obama being elected president, that some foreign flag fool like Shabusi getting a Grammy is somehow a win for you because this is your team. You should be cheering for this, while these people are dogging you out, running you into the ground, and only cheering for themselves. The fact that ABC News had to take this down so quickly and didn't even say why, that shows they realize what a threat to white power that term is, and make no mistake. They didn't invent the white media to give you the news of the day. They invented it to promote their own agenda and their own worldview and to brainwash you into accepting it as your own. Foundational Black American proves that we have rejected their feeble attempts at brainwashing. We think and act for ourselves, and we made it a point that the lineage is going to be standing up because this is the greatest threat to the system of oppression that we face. And by honing in on that lineage, we refine the message and make it much more difficult for white power to send in some would-be messenger on their behalf. This is the white media admitting they lost control of the narrative, especially with the black grassroots, and now they're desperately trying to claw it back. They're trying to unring the bell. But that only works in places they control, and they don't control the black media. This is how it works, family. They hear us and they fear us. So they first try to pretend that we didn't exist. They waited to see if we would burn out and go away because that's what the black boomers did. That's what every previous generation did. They didn't stand on anything for very long. And what this taught white power was that they could simply wait us out, no matter how much noise we made. Well, not this time. And since it didn't go away, since it is unquestionably part of the landscape, they've been forced to have to reckon with it involuntarily. But as they're showing you, they didn't put that piece up to do us any favors, family. The same way they tried to co-opt and redefine reparations, don't be surprised if you see some slimy, half-brained attempts to try to scandalize foundational black American. They can't claim that it's Russian bots who are behind this lineage movement. So instead, expect them to put on some tethers and foreign flags and LGBT intersectional types who will be saying that it's controversial and divisive. And then they'll try to stack the deck by putting on some hand-picked bootlicks who will say, yep, them FBA advocates, they's is dividing the community. I'm not saying that I want that to happen or even that it will happen. But what I am saying is that when the white media is forced to have to reckon with what the black grassroots are doing, they have to take an L. And as a result, they're going to be trying to find ways to attack it. And if that fails, they'll go to plan C. And C stands for co-opt. But in the meanwhile, this ABC piece has shook people up, particularly at ABC. Some fools are trying to say that this put FBA on the map. No to the Shade Room and other clowns. FBA's been on the map for several years because the black grassroots put it there. What this piece and the withdrawal of it proves is that the white media heard about it, they knew about it, they quake in their boots when it's even mentioned, they try to put up a brave front as, look at this FBA thing here. Say, oh, well, we should go ahead and do a piece on it. It is Black History Month after all. And then they look at, wait, hold on. Is that lineage? Well, you know that this is going to be putting us straight on the path to reparations. This is going to be actually refining black empowerment in America because we're not going to be able to dilute it with all of these tethers and shills and bootlicks and intersectionalists and foreign flags and such. Get it off. Take it away. Take it down immediately. Delete all of it. White media is not concerned about credibility because they know they don't have any credibility. Their entire job is to be the bullhorn for established white power. And you know when something really has the bastard shook because in this case, they didn't even dare to try to deny it or to denounce it or to say, we have to issue a correction. But there's a retraction we have to make. They were like, don't say anything. We're all just going to go back to pretending as if we don't know about these people. They are not to be mentioned under any circumstances. We don't know anything about them, never heard about them, don't know nothing. Even though this is like a tree that fell in the forest, oh, to hell with that. This is like an entire forest that fell on them. But as far as they're concerned, we're just not going to say anything about it, and hopefully people will forget. See, this is what the white media always does, the same thing, only more of it. On a side note, though, this is the exact same ABC News who ran a story not too long ago criticizing Trump because he removed a Philadelphia memorial to people who George Washington had enslaved. Unquestionably, they were right for calling Trump out on that. But my question is, why is it then that they've turned around and done the exact same thing? They removed an entire news segment and pieces from their own website, specifically because those pieces honored and highlighted the exact same lineage of people who George Washington had enslaved. So if ABC News complains when Trump does it, why is it okay when ABC News does it? Now, I'm not going to be engaging in speculation about who exactly it could have been who was responsible for this, because the reality happens to be most of the people in this society have been eating off of our disempowerment. It has been our oppression that has been feeding everyone else. So that being the case, you're going to have a list of suspects as long as the phone book in every town you live in. You know, I'm still holding out for A-Dunce to gain some legitimacy. Maybe if we help Cardi B push some BS lawsuit at the Supreme Court. Or nah. And somewhere Roly-Poly Martin is crying in the buffet line and trying to tell everyone it's just the onions and those cheap old beef tips that's got him crying. And you know that he would be one of the main people going, beep, 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 ABC, y'all done lost your damn minds. Y'all let people platforming them disobedient Negroes over there. I mean, after all the years that I've been spending over here, just licking master's boots and licking master's behind and kissing his rump ring. Y'all gonna give them FBA people an entire segment on y'all's airwaves. Y'all won't even bring me on for a weekend panel shot. Y'all gonna go ahead and give them some airtime, but not me. What the hell is wrong with y'all? That's what Roly-Poly's concerned about. And you know that he and his ilk, they're probably sitting there ripping out what few hairs they got left, which will make a nice addition to the brain cells they never had. But let this stand as a complete and thorough repudiation of the idiots, the morons, the people who are engaged in terminal wishful thinking, saying, you know, that lineage thing, that's just an online hashtag. It don't mean nothing. I mean, yeah, that's just something on the internet. It don't really mean nothing in the real world. Don't nobody know about y'all. Y'all just whistling to the wind. Y'all just talking to yourselves. Ain't nobody listening. Idiots like Joy Reid, who said that anyone who mentions us is Russian bots, that was a confirmation years ago. Though one has to wonder, is Joy Reid going to be calling ABC Russian bots now? Of course not. They're owned by white people, and she doesn't want to offend folks who she desperately hopes to get a paycheck from again one day. She knew this was where it was going. So did her white paymasters, because once we establish the lineage, that means it becomes clear when people talk about the few good things that came out of the United States, when they talk about all the dynamic and irresistible greatness of this culture, they will understand that all those things they love came from a specific group, and that specific group stands for something. And these tethers, they don't have our history, and they won't be allowed to swing off our coattails any longer. And by the way, never forget, the empowerment of our lineage also helps to embolden and bolster those who come from the diaspora, the immigrants who actually have been on code. Because when you cut these tethers loose, that makes it where you are severing them from the white paymasters who've been propping them up. That helps to empower those people who actually have been standing with the angels. But we have to be honest about the fact that their positions in Africa and the Caribbean were overrun a long time ago. We have been the battery powering and inspiring all these other folks in the diaspora. That's not an insult, it's a fact. From Marcus Garvey to Mandela, we've been the ones who held the flag of global black dignity and unity and empowerment high. While you had a bunch of tethers and such saying, I'm not black, don't call me black. And now look at these same fools. They're desperate to be the first in line to say that they're black, because what they think is if they say that they're black, we're going to be putting on the cape and coming to their rescue. Instead, we're showing them no, nobody's coming to the rescue this time. You guys want to say that you were better than us? Have at it. You want to say that you work harder than us? Go ahead and tell that to ICE and tell that to the rest of these white supremacists. Go ahead and tell them about how hard you work. I'm sure they'll be impressed by that. They're the ones who are the most worried about what this sea change is hinting at. Now, while I'm not going to be throwing the Pan-Africanist as a group under the bus, I will say that there's been a hell of a lot of these guys who in the last 2 to 3 years, they've become just a bunch of ideological dead-enders. And a lot of them have tried to attack the lineage movement. Now, a lot of them, especially these olders, I dare not call them elders, these people are fossils from a bygone era who are angry because the younger generation got tired of chasing a mirage and stood on business. We opened our eyes, while these guys are still fast asleep. They made themselves irrelevant. We're not going to waste our lives trying to fight for white acceptance or fighting for the acceptance of hostile foreigners who have spat in our faces for over 100 years. We told them for generations that it was time to cut the BS and get on code, and that either we're going to do business or we have to go our separate ways. We're heading towards black empowerment. But too many in Africa and the Caribbean have been heading right back towards colonialism. They've been throwing the doors open to allow every group of non-black people into the continent or onto their islands, including racist trash like Jeffrey Epstein, who hate black people, and these silly Negroes in the Caribbean were skinning and grinning and smiling like that reprobate was something good to eat. And having no awareness whatsoever that by doing that, they were showing the world that they didn't have pride, they didn't have dignity, they didn't have self-respect. Dr. John Henrik Clarke spent his entire life preaching the sermon that the African needs to grow up and stand up and decide that he's going to have others who live under his power. But at this point, the African decided, no, I'll live under everybody else's boot. Now, you got people in the United States who are spelling out exactly what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be in charge. And more importantly than that, you're supposed to be able to decide who eats and who doesn't eat. But unless you decide that you want to do that, when massa or some other group of reprobates comes along, you'll just roll right over and say, how can I serve you? Both Africa and the Caribbean are emptying out. That's why the invaders, specifically from Asia, are heading there, and people from the continent and the Caribbean can try to put a pretty face on it and deny it, but haven't these guys had enough of trying to lie to themselves? These are the poorest and weakest places on Earth precisely because they refuse to be real about their situation. Well, we are not going to lie to ourselves. This is why when they immigrate, they immediately begin attacking the people who open doors for them. Why? Because they feel ashamed. They feel as if their entire culture and their country failed. And they think that when we look at them, we see the same thing. Failure. So they sit in another country on the other side of the world, speaking a foreign language, entering foreign institutions, and yet calling themselves by whatever country they were refugees from, and trying to act as if home was better than where they are, or that they were better than us. This is delusion. This is living a lie. The first step to changing your situation is to admit to your situation. We have plenty of on-code immigrant brothers and sisters who weren't with the BS, and they know what we're saying is true. If Africa and the Caribbean had people like us who were unapologetic about telling the truth, then those places would be far better off. But it would require them to make the sacrifice of ego and to swallow their pride and to admit how they came so far wrong in the first place. The entire reason that the lineage movement was embraced by so many people is because when it came to the diaspora, not only did they refuse to join with us, they also stonewalled their own people from being able to build anything in their home countries. This is the entire problem, and they brought that same dysfunction here. And for a while it seemed that white power was content to subsidize the tethers, but as I've always said, when white power is done with its tools, it breaks its tools. Every group throughout history who has chosen to throw in their lot with the oppressors always thinks that they're being clever. They always think that they're getting away with something. Collaborating with the oppressor is the way of the coward. It's the way of the liar. But the thing about lies is they're not real. Reality always gets the last word. That's why trash like Caroline Wanga fled to be over here. A woman from a family that collaborated in the East African slave trade, and her family lives openly, with nobody in Kenya holding them to account. How can these people be able to show their faces around the very people who are the victims of that Holocaust? Because apparently those places over there have a culture of allowing traitors and backstabbers to just live freely among them, and to be able to climb the economic ladder and lord over them. Whereas with foundational black Americans, you know Clarence Thomas can't come among us. Neither can David Clark or any other bootlick. These clowns are in permanent exile. They have to stay close to massa because they don't have a community. We don't let traitors run around and eat off of us. If we're going to be serious about crippling and destroying white supremacy, we have to understand the tactics employs the enemy uses. And throughout all of history, oppressors have tried to use buffer groups as a means to derange the internal politics of the main group that they're oppressing. It's supposed to be some sort of barrier between you and the people who are actually holding the knife. That's the game they want you to play, and you'll be wasting all your time trying to negotiate with these buffer groups who have no interest in overthrowing massa because they see themselves as being part of massa's machine. Well, now we're separating ourselves from the buffer groups and making sure that they can't be around us, because when you have people, just as an example, from Nigeria who spit in our faces and have been doing the most to denigrate us, when they get out there and do some dirt, now they have to stand on their own. They got to hold that L. They have to be the ones who people point at and say, oh, this is you. And it's the same with the Somalians. All those people who were spending decades saying that they were better than us, that they worked harder than us, and that they were more educated, more successful than us, or so they said. Oh, and they're not black. Well, now that these white supremacists are going in on them, people are understanding that their situation is separate from ours. That's what the society's seeing. Because this is what we've shown. This was a game they could only play for so long as we allowed them to do that flat blackness definition nonsense. Now, when some tether or some brain-dead bootlick tries the old, what is black American culture? This is. The white media tries to conjure magic. That's what liars do because they're too weak to create reality. They only have what they stole from us. And now we're starting the process of taking it back. We are the culture. We are the ones who everyone looks to for trends and ideas because we have the pulse. Everyone else tries to tell us that we have no influence, and yet they obsess over everything we do precisely because we have the energy. And they hate it because our history, our struggle reminds them that we didn't sell out. It reminds them that we live in honesty. Meanwhile, they've had to live a lie. When other people think about all the famous, noteworthy things about black culture, the things that everyone wants to copy and imitate and are inspired by, from our history of fighting for freedom to defining social decency to, of course, our indelible impact on the very language that people speak, the way that they dress, the music they listen to, the art that they see, when the world thinks about black, they think about us. Now, this isn't to say that they never think about those outside the FBA lineage. That would be a lie. But it's intellectually dishonest to say that the significance of our history is looked at by the rest of the world as no more meaningful than the rest of the black world. Again, that's not an insult, it's a fact. And when you consider that we have been the main ones holding high and proud the flag of black empowerment and identity, we have the right to be proud, because we've done it taking shots not just from the white supremacists, but also from a lot of black people too, who really have no excuse for not knowing any better. So rather than complaining about the delineation movement, all of these folks in the diaspora ought to be embracing it. They should be glad that it's happening, because this is a moment of truth that is long overdue. Without people being able to glom onto us and swing on our coattails, some necessary conversations that people in Africa and the Caribbean have been postponing are finally going to have to take place. But even if they don't take place, it's not going to be any skin off our noses. What Africa and the Caribbean lack is a sense of self-acceptance and pride, not the phony, puffed-up tribalism that attempts to masquerade as genuine black pride. That's what's on display in the Caribbean, and nobody is fooled. What the world sees is a broken loyalty system. We can thank the Tethers for that. But what has been done to punish them for undermining black people in Africa and the Caribbean? That's the real question. What penalties have been imposed for this treason? And when you have African leaders like the Ethiopian president who called himself disrespecting us, where was the outrage from the Africans at this blatant act of divisiveness? It wasn't there, because these corrupt kleptocrats also agreed with them, and they haven't done anything for their own people. That's why Trump and his racist pals knew that they could stomp all over the Africans. When you have the South African president come to the U.S., when you got Trump accusing him of committing genocide, lying through his teeth, and this alleged black leader sits there just taking this verbal whipping like a child, and he doesn't say a peep about the treatment of Africans in the U.S. by the Trump administration, to say nothing of foundational black Americans, when this so-called black president doesn't stand up for his own people, and he acts all cordial in the face of a man who insults him and his nation, when you allow somebody to talk to you like that in front of the entire world, especially somebody like Donald Trump, what you're showing everybody is that you're not to be respected. But then again, the South African president wasn't at the White House for respect. He was there to see if he could finesse some money from Trump, same as all the other misleaders from the continent. And he was willing to be humiliated in front of the world to get it. As are the so-called leaders in Somalia and Ethiopia and elsewhere. They'll take being publicly humiliated because they need the U.S.'s foreign aid money, and they also know the U.S. doesn't need them at all. As long as Trump isn't doing anything to those misleaders over there personally, as long as he's not shutting down any of their secret bank accounts or telling other countries to arrest them for not paying taxes or whatever, he can humiliate them as much as he wants. And he can also mistreat, if not brutalize, those immigrants who are in the U.S. Have you seen any African or Caribbean countries deport the American embassy personnel in their home countries? Do you see any of these nations talking about sanctions or doing anything at all? They won't lift a finger to stop Trump and even say a word about it. That's not something they're going to do. Now, what kind of culture is that? While people are claiming that foundational black Americans, you black Americans don't have a culture, well, what kind of culture is this? Can you imagine one of us sitting there like a whipped dog and being talked to like that? Not just in the U.S., but anywhere in the world? Can you imagine a black American just sitting there just taking it? What kind of culture allows that? Everyone can see it, and people need to stop lying to save face. See, this is why the Tethers simultaneously hate us, and they also try to stick close to us, because when white power starts slapping them around, they know we're the only ones who are actually going to fight. They won't. This is why the immigrants can't stop ICE from rounding them up. Your world coined the phrase, America was founded by thieves, slaves, and opportunists. Immigrants are the opportunists in that equation. They all run away and try to find a place where someone else already built opportunities, and then they try to finesse some for themselves, get in where you fit in. But what it also means that as opportunists, they're self-interested. They came in with a tribal mindset, not a mindset of uniting with anyone. They came to see what they could get for themselves. And when you have the dominant society go in on them, they can't form any sort of cross-immigrant unified front because all of them went out of their way to separate themselves from everyone else, even from other immigrants. That's the cost of tribalism. And they also made it a point to say that they were better than, well, certainly better than foundational Black Americans. And that kind of crap may seem cute when white power is humoring them and pretending to tolerate them, but when white power finally drops the facade and shows its true face, then they need some unity to bolster their numbers. But having never practiced being respectful or unifying with others, all they can do is sit next to other immigrants, but that's as far as it goes. They don't really know what to do next. They all pretend to be part of the dominant society, the melanated faces of the oppressor class. So when it comes time to fight their benefactors, they can't. They start looking around wanting us to do it. That's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for us to do it. There is no substitute for the moral legitimacy that we represent, and there's also no substitute for the backbone that we've had. And that's the reason why delineation's not going away. And that's also the reason why it's important. The definition of power, someone said, is the ability to define yourself and your relationship to those around you in such a way that your definition becomes theirs. That's the reason why ABC News was all shocked and shook. Oh my God, you got these people who we enslaved, who we thought we had on a leash, and here they are making us adhere to their definition. They're exercising power over us. Why, this is the tail wagging the dog. That's how they see it. White power invented that lie. The damn fraud of a flat definition of blackness that included all the tethers and the cast-offs from other groups, and we rejected that and pushed for self-determination, which starts with self-identification. In other words, to literally tell the world who we are. We're not going to let anyone lump us in with the likes of Candace Owens, or these tethers who create these websites meant to promote and spread anti-black stereotypes and dysfunction, or anyone else who came here to cosplay as us while at the same time telling the world that we're beneath them. These fools who like to get in front of white power and act like buffoons and then try to push their idiocy off on us as if it was us doing it, these people who commit all kinds of crime and then try to put that on us, no more. We are checking people's paperwork. And as a result, other people are going to start doing the same. And these same folks who have been only too glad to identify themselves by whatever country they immigrated from, that's fine. And when one of theirs does something, they have to hold that too. We'll hold ours, and they can hold theirs. That's what's happening here. In order to have force, you must first have focus. And having buffer groups and professional noisemakers insinuated amongst us is the opposite of coherence. The next step is to shine sunlight on who's in the lineage. We need clarity, so we all know who's who and what's what. So that's my take on the whole ABC doing the foundational Black American history segment. It's just like with Tucker Carlson, he admitted that he not only knew about the FBA designation, but he also knew what it was about. That's why you don't see him running around trying to pretend ignorance and act like he doesn't know who's eligible for reparations and who's not. Notice that. He wasn't doing that mess. You want to know why? Because he already knew that we were on code. He couldn't play that game and he knew it. And whenever these white supremacists try to attack reparations, they don't come to us and pretend like they don't know what foundational Black American is. You notice that? And they also don't pretend like they don't know how it relates to reparations. That is precisely the kind of clarity they've been trying to avoid. It's why lineage is important, because they can't muddy the waters, and it proves these racists have always known the truth. That's why they run scared from it. And now you got ABC who's had to admit it too, and people are angry that we've defined ourselves. Dr. King talked about how the summer of riots was caused by the nation's winters of delay. He was absolutely right. The principal lie, the main stalling tactic the white society uses to postpone having to face our demands, is to claim that the issue isn't relevant anymore, or they just don't know anything about it. Well, they're getting a hell of an education now, aren't they? And this is not a case of we're being dependent on them to say anything about us. The revolution's not going to be televised, okay? And the revolution is also not dependent on Twitter tweets or Facebook posts either. See, that's something that the alt-right and other assorted trash could never understand. These guys are the absolute masters of memes. But you don't carry out a social revolution in 120 characters or less, or posting your phony made-up crime stats, or posting some stupid pictures with a frog. These guys are going to meme themselves to death, and we will let them. So family, take a bow. This was what you did. You are the black media. You guys are not just the signal boosters, you're also the force multipliers. You're the reason why this is happening, because you're the ones who heard the message, embraced it, and ran with it. You made it happen. You are the ones who have validated the effectiveness of leaderless resistance. That's what's going on here. Oh, sure, the white media is going to be desperately looking around for someone that they can scandalize or demonize, or something that they can use to say, oh, you got to stay away from these guys. These guys are dangerous. Oh, they're going to be doing that like they did with Joke Reed. But it's not going to mean anything. It'll be like attacking an aircraft carrier with a squirt gun. So for the tethers and shills who were desperately hoping that they were going to get us to stop what we're doing, because that's what happens in their countries. All you got to do is give just a whimper of discontent and everybody just scatters. As you can see, we're built differently over here. And that's the reason why the lineage movement exists. We are trying to preserve who we are, because who we are is good and effective. And if you're on the side of right, you ought to be on our side too. You ought to be saying, you know what? They're absolutely right. These guys represent the only true chance that we have to change things. You should be backing us 150%, no matter where you come from. Because this is the only place on earth where there is an actual fight for black empowerment. And if you actually do see yourself as black, then that means our fight is yours. You don't see anybody else doing it. If we don't, nobody else is going to. But regardless of whether anyone chooses to salute our flag or not, that's irrelevant. We salute our own. We honor ourselves because we know who we are. We know what our value is. And as far as the white media acknowledging it, well, whether they do so or not is irrelevant. Regardless, we're going to keep doing the work. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Burkett Cochrane, Cornell Sly, Kari Brasher, Corey Prelude, and Glenda Tice. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.